Oh man, welcome back everyone to another episode of the Wealth Tank, conversation on financial literacy and wealth building. So this is part two of the last conversation we had last month, and we wanted to bring back our amazing panelists, minus one who's unfortunately unable to be with us. So in as we have a very amazing mind, Miss Renata Joy, and she will be filling in. And
Oh yeah.
of course, you guys are familiar with the other panelists, Aubrey Grimsley, Miss Nicole Pendergrass, and we're still waiting on one more panelist to come on, Miss Nicole Gauthier, to jump on with us, and we will be talking about what we spoke about last month on Black History Month, which is the bridging the wealth gap, financial literacy, money, and all of the in between, and as far as how we can start bridging that gap and really making moves and strides to have that knowledge about money, not be afraid about money. So before we kick off, we are going to have Miss Renata just give us a brief bio, quick introduction on who she is and what she does, and we'll kick off with some questions.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to share this panel with these amazing ladies as we're wrapping up Women's History Month. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Bernarda Joy. I am a wealth strategist. I help motivated investors take the money that they've earned and create more revenue. So basically, what I do is I help investors figure out how to get their first investment property. I do believe my mission actually is to shrink the intergenerational wealth gap, which goes right along with today's conversation. I think that there's a lot that's missing there, and there's more conversations and implementations that we need to take together as a whole.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you on. So let's just get the show on the road since we only have an hour today. We're going to try to stick to the time constraints. So when we last spoke, we were talking again about the wealth gap and the fact that currently today in the U.S. it's the average white family has an approximate amount of wealth of $171,000 in net wealth, while the median African American family has approximately 17,000, and that's about 150,000 difference. So we're gonna piggyback off that. Like one of the questions that's bothers me is why is it that in our community that money is such a stigma, that people don't want to talk about money. There's a uncomfortability about money. We'll start with Aubrey on this one.
I think when you start talking about money in general, a lot of us end up having a bill in our name before we're even 70. So I'm sure that's not the case for most of them. Also, credit cards. How often have we been told that credit cards, don't use them, leave credit cards alone? Whereas majority of them are leveraging credit cards to acquire their first asset that leads to their generational wealth. So it goes back to education. I think it starts and ends with communication and education. Once you've been communicated something, if you want to learn more about it and know more about it, not every family that is white is wealthy. So we need to definitely make sure that's stated as well. It's important to know that whatever is going on in the home, that does help. I will say a large part of my success has been from someone that did not look like me, or families that did not look like me. They've actually taught me a lot. Like when I was in college and different things of that nature, growing up, fortunately, I had those successful, individuals in place, but I learned even more when I went to college. So ultimately, it does start in the household. It does start with what you're surrounded by and what you're putting your kids in, where you're taking them to. That stuff does matter. But if those conversations aren't happening at the dinner table because everyone's on the phone, or half of the family's in the living room, the other half of the family's in the bedroom, or there is no family at all. Those are different type of dynamics and points of where individuals are raised overall. But we don't talk much about credit cards. We don't talk about good debt versus bad debt. It does not exist. Don't use a credit card. Like there's just so many different stigmas that are placed there. It's not that it's a box. Oftentimes we create the box. It doesn't have to be a box. If there's a box, nobody ever talks about opening up and looking inside of it. Work around the box or find a way around the box. Well, why does there have to be a box? Nobody ever has that conversation. So let's talk about sometimes what's not present that we create as an issue or a problem, as most individuals refer to it. So these situations occur. It's not that they're always there. And then perception comes with that. And too many individuals are so worried about what others think. as opposed to realizing that most of them, they're not thinking about you. You're not that important to them. Just focus on the people in between the four walls with you, first and foremost.
Nice. Ladies, feel free to follow suit as you choose.
I actually do want to jump in there because her points about the conversations around credit cards and even at the dinner table is just that our families, maybe even our parents, just didn't have some of that information. And so it was just work hard, go to school. We know the whole dogma of what you're supposed to do and the trajectory of your life. But even my mom, when I went off to college, like we didn't talk about money. All I knew is that we didn't have a lot of it and that we didn't buy expensive stuff. Like why waste money on that? We didn't go to the regular movies. We went to the 99-cent movie where it only had the movies that was out 6 months later. You couldn't see nothing right when it came out. Like, so I just knew that this was just, we didn't buy name brand stuff. We bought shoes from Payless. Like it was always about saving money because there wasn't enough. So that already instills a mindset of like a scarcity mindset. But it's because our parents were more concerned about surviving and just providing for their kids and providing maybe a better life than what they had. So every generation is trying to do a little bit better. But that's why we didn't have those money talks, because they didn't know that information. The most financial advice I ever got from my mom was when I went to college and she said, don't open no credit card. Just like Aubrey said, don't open a credit card. There was no other discussion on that. There was no why. I didn't know anything about credit. Why was it important? So the first couple of years I didn't open one, but then something happened and you get those offers in the mail. So I opened one and then I summarily ruined my credit because I didn't have that concept in place about what that meant. And all I knew was that mindset that I think a lot of us have as a community when we're still struggling with personal finances was, oh, this is free money. Like I could just use it. And if my payment is only, going to be $50 or $10 a month. And, I'm in college, I'm on this small salary and I'm half working, I'm just going to go ahead and charge it and I'll pay them a little bit. I'll pay the minimum because that's all they require. Not knowing what that full, and if I can't pay it 1 month, whatever, they can wait to get that money. They don't need my money. I only have a little bit anyway, and so that is just perpetuated over time. And that mindset is very hard to get out of. So I think until our mindset on the strategies around using some of these tools is explored and really dug into deeper, then we're still going to just stay in that blanket of how we're using. I think is also just very dependent on your personal your ethos and how you're able to use those tools, because some people still can't use a credit card because they don't know how to use it correctly. They don't know how to leverage it. They don't know how to pay on time, and they still have that mindset of it being free money, so it is just changing our mindsets and changing how we use some of those tools and understanding the bigger picture.
Right. And I just want to add, everything you guys say, I echo that. I grew up in an era where parents didn't share information, and it wasn't because, they were mean or withholding. It was just how things were done. It just perpetuated from my grandmother didn't share it with my mom. And that's just pretty much what she did with me. And but I remember watching her always writing on the back of envelopes, trying to figure out how she was going to pay this to do that and sacrifice it. But she never sat down to explain to me what she was doing. And I never felt like we had a money problem, to be honest, because she did everything to shelter us from that, me and my siblings. We had a clean home, we had food on the table, and that's all I knew. I didn't know of the nuances of what it takes to actually run a household. So when I got my own, I was kind of lost, right? I didn't understand the importance of having good credit, what deems credit, how to actually leverage it. None of that was taught to me at home, and never mind in schools. Even in my after school programs, I did get a lot of enriched programs, but none of them about financial literacy. And I think that that's what's missing. If you go to a lot of other communities, they're teaching their kids at a young age how to open up a savings kids club. They talk about that. They start with the credit union where they teach them how to set up a college or a Christmas fund or something. But they're teaching them very young the value of money. Whereas in our community, it's a scarcity, and we're just taught to live in survival mode. Get a job. It doesn't matter if you like your job, just have a job. Let's start with that. Your passion doesn't count at this point. Remember, it's all about survival mode. And I think that's what's holding us back. We're still with that mindset that Nicole was saying, Nicole P, because now I got two Nicoles here. But it starts with the mind. And, at this point, as an adult, you have a responsibility to now get that education because you know that something's missing. So we can't hold our parents, hostage anymore because they didn't teach us. But it's also up to us to help the next generation by creating platforms like this, right? Really getting ahead and getting involved with the community on the voting level of coming out with the state laws and stuff to actually change some of this. We got to change the narrative. It's just really messed up right now.
Florida just passed the
Nicole.
law for it.
What you said, Aubrey?
Florida actually just passed a law for financial
They did, like 2
literacy.
weeks ago, right? I
Yeah,
saw
so
it.
that required
on that.
It's a
Yeah, I
requirement.
said we need to make that a federal law.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we do. To piggyback off of what you guys had said, I had a bit of a different experience growing up where, we never saw any sort of struggling. We didn't have that, but my parents taught us about like going to school, getting a good job, and working your way up until you're basically 65 and it's time to retire. I started investing when I was little, like I was probably 11, 12 years old when I had my first mutual fund account. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, that was like the traditional route. Why not learn how to leverage and understand the different tools that are out there to provide you with greater success than just what the middle class or upper middle class do. And so I guess that kind of was like my downfall, where I'm like, okay, well, I have this money, I have these, I have the money to be able to scale and to be able to do things, but I don't know what to do other than, okay, well, I know when I start working, I've got a 401k, and that's going to be my primary source of retirement. But the reality is no one wants to wait until they're that age to finally enjoy life, right? If I had known about all of these different ways to leverage credit, understanding good debt versus bad debt, because I thought all debt was bad. I was like, okay, like I would pay off my credit cards because I was scared to not do that. I would make sure that all of the bills were paid and then some, like paying extra just to make sure that, I had myself covered. Now I realize like that was a waste. There I could have been able to, to grow funds in a different kind of way. So I think that just creatively talking to our kids when they're little, so that they understand all of the nuances of finance as a whole will better prepare them than just teaching them just save. Because what are we saving for if it's not going to grow? So just, my thoughts on that.
So do you believe that it is hurting? Well, we as parents are hurting our children, or parents of old are hurt us when they position us with the stigma of go to school, go to college, and get a good job and work for a pension. Is that hurting us, or is that helping us move ahead in a sense?
I don't think that it's hurting us. Yeah, like I wouldn't necessarily say that it's hurting us, because I do think that there is value in that lesson, and there's value in education and going a little bit of that traditional route. But what I do think that we should do is take a step further and teach them about passive income, and teach them how to recycle their money, and different ways and strategies of creating side businesses, do side hustles. Like don't get a job just to get a job just to survive. Get a job because you like what you're doing, or maybe you don't, but you're able to grow your money and be able to use it for things that you do end up enjoying and liking. So I just think that whole narrative of going to school and getting a job and working till you're 65, the working to the 65 part is not the part that I want to teach my kids. But I would go a step further in, okay, now that you've got that education, how can we work that to your advantage? And what can we do to instill some other sorts of resources and leverage the money that you do have?
And I just want to add to piggyback. I I don't think it hurts us, but I think it kind of limits us because it conditions your mindset to think that that's how you should do things, right? Like you can't think outside of the box. You have to actually build your boss's empire instead of creating your own. It's just changing the whole trajectory of how we should actually move up and matriculate through life. So I don't think it hurts us, but I think it limits us, and it starts with the mindset, like what Aubrey started off saying.
I also think too, we need to be realistic about the fact that a person can't teach you something they don't know. Most of the parents that aren't teaching it, it's because they don't know. They love, protect, provide. I would hope that if they knew, they would share. So I don't think it's something that was being withheld if it wasn't being taught. They just didn't know because it wasn't passed down to them. They just taught what they knew and or what they learned, et cetera, moving forward from there. And then, when Nicole talks about I call them side passions. Because if you're doing something on the side, it should be a passion. For me, I stay away from personally the word hustle, just because if I say it's connotation, somebody else say it might be okay. So I just say side passion because that's what actually it is for me. Anything that I do, like my jobs that I've had, all of them were passions. All of them are passions. That's why they correlate to each other. They play off of each other and they allow me to do different things. I will say this too, leverage your capital from your jobs to do what needs to be done. When someone gives you the opportunity to be in a position to receive capital for your services, even though you're building their empire, when you're on your break, instead of just being on a break on your phone, leverage that time to build your empire. That's what I did while I was, right out of college, et cetera. And I'm, working at a university, which is unheard of. And ultimately, I was leveraging the time in between my gaps to work on my business. I was drawing my logos out. I was writing down my business plan. I was looking at what names were available as far as domain names. I was literally doing every part of the arm. Like when your teacher teaches you how to write the topic down, write a circle, then draw the arms from it to write down what your paragraphs will be about. That's pretty much how I had it at the time, just drawing. Okay, I want this to go back here. Here's my timeline for this. Here's my timeline for that. But I was doing that time I had in between while they were paying me capital at that job to do my job. So I leveraged that capital. And for almost a decade, I literally was fronting the bill by leveraging that capital and putting it into my business account. So ultimately, I didn't need start off capital. I created my start off capital. So if you're going to leverage me and maximize my time on your job and you make money off me, I'm going to utilize your capital and make it make sense for me as my business venture capital. So ultimately, it's how you choose to look at it, how you choose to receive it, and how you choose to go about it.
Right. So your job was basically your investor.
It was my investor. So I'm his investor. Yeah.
Someone told me that before too. I love that term. Mm-hmm. Your job's your corporate sponsor. Yep. It's sponsoring your other activities. But just to piggyback off of what you guys were saying with as far as like a job and responsibilities. And because most people, like if you love your job, work hard at it, keep it. We need workers in this society to make society run, right? Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. There has to be some workers. But like Albert was saying, like leverage that and make sure you use that to, here the baby, make sure you use that to your advantage and to actually, even if there's nothing else that you really want to do actively, at least learn and educate about passive opportunities so you can funnel that job capital into passive opportunities, because maybe you do love your job and you're passionate about it and you want to just focus on your growth there and the impact you can create on society throughout your W-2. That's fine, but just make sure you are prepared for a time when maybe your job doesn't need your services anymore and you or your family has some emergency or something else happens in your life where you need to step away, and a lot of people can't because they don't have that foresight, because they think, oh, I love this job, I'm never leaving. Or even if I don't, like, I'm still never leaving because I'm just gonna, like, I know what I can do either I got the benefits or whatever else. But I just want people to prepare for the unknown. And the way you do that is by replacing that income through passive activity.
Mm-hmm. You have to begin with the end in mind. You got to have a roadmap, where are you going with this? I mean, because you don't want to be like when Nicole G was saying that you get a job and you stay there till you're 65. Like, how enjoyable of life is that? So you got to have a game plan. You got to reverse engineer it. And like Aubrey was saying, draw a circle and put these arms and come up with a strategy, right? Because that's what it's about, coming up with a strategy that you can implement to, like what Nicole P was saying, to have that passive income so that you don't have to work until you're 65.
Powerful stuff. And I totally agree with all you ladies. I believe that a misconception that we have in our community is that, our job is forever. And we can get the pink slip at any given time. You're easily replaceable. If they can find someone else that they can pay your salary to, or pay someone new less than they're paying you, they'll replace you at any given time. So like Nicole Pendergrass definitely mentioned, it's always good to have a way to funnel whatever income you're bringing in into something passive, so that way in the event you get that pink slip, you get that notice of termination, at least you have cash flow coming in to support your lifestyle and stuff like that. So great point, ladies.
And I want to say this too. Individuals that have jobs, be great at whatever it is you're doing. Because whatever you do to somebody else in their time on their job while you're employed by them, you better believe it's going to come full circle when you decide to run your business and open up yours. So please be great. Exhaust yourself of being great at the little things, because those jobs end up playing a huge part in how you operate whatever it is that you're going to do and how you want your employees to operate. You're going to get it back full circle. So that's when I always say it's always a great day to have a great day, is because I know I always put out positivity. So even if I don't get it back, I'm not worried about that one. There's 1,000 others. So you just be great at whatever it is you do and exhaust yourself at those little things, because it will show up, and develop habits of success that you don't have to get rid of. I want to make sure I say that, because I hear a lot of individuals, like I go up to a place sometimes and hear someone saying something. I'm like, hey, be professional, because one day you might own the place. One day you might be running this place. So remember these moments. And they're like, you know what? Thank you. I never even thought about it like that. So there's always opportunities to add value and add little nuggets. When you see a 16-year-old working, etc., doing the grunt work, they need a little support. They might need a little something when they see somebody else not working as hard as them, but yet they're getting paid more money than them. So be great at whatever it is you do. And don't look at today. Look at where it is you plan on being tomorrow and the day after. Be the best version of you.
Have the end in mind, like Bernarda said. Great stuff, guys. So let's move on to a more, broader aspect now. What are steps that we can take starting today that can help us sort of wedge this gap that, of income between white families, black families, and stuff like that? Like, what are certain things that we can do, in your opinion?
Stop focusing on what other people think of you. I think that is the hugest thing, because when you do that and you're keeping up with the Joneses and you're worried about all these material things and having nice car, all these nice things that take money out of your pocket that aren't paying you, what are you worried for? Why even? That's just one thing that I see over and over and over again, is people that don't have the money but look like they do, or they maybe have the money and they should be investing it into other things that are going to come full circle back to them, and instead they're not, because they're worried about what other people think of them. Stop worrying about what others think and just do you, and do what's good and what's going to benefit you and your family. And I think that once we take out the thoughts of other people and we realize that we really are our own worst critic, that's when we can really excel and progress.
So I agree with everything. That's so true, because a lot of us, we keep up with the Joneses, and to be honest, the Joneses usually don't even have what they're depicting on social media.
Never,
all the way
never,
never. You really don't. But I think just to add another step is you got to mitigate your risk, and the first thing that you do that is by getting educated. You got to be around like-minded people who actually know what they're doing, who's talking the talk and actually doing it, right? Not somebody who's Googled something and they're like, yep, this is how you do it. No, somebody who's actually walking the walk and can demonstrate to you with transformation that this is how you can do this. A through Z, this is what you do. So yeah, you got to get educated.
Absolutely. That was the first thing that I thought about when you said it, educating. And remember too that people are assets, because there are no assets without the people. Because we value the money, we make the the assets as people. So I value people first and foremost. And remember, you are the company that you keep. My grandma used to always say that you are the company you keep. Watch who you hang around. It matters. People are watching, and if they feel some way about them, they're probably gonna feel that same way about you. As perception. So just little, work for what you want, pay for what you get. My grandmother says that all the time. I ain't always talking about money, baby. And I get it. Like when, when you get older, you're like, okay, watch your closest friends because your enemies won't harm you. I was like, well, geez, what's the use having friends? She's like, no, you're missing the point, baby. So it's like when you hear the older individuals say certain stuff, they've lived enough of life to where that they can add value, even if they don't really realize what it is they're saying to you. And who are you? Like a lot of times individuals, they're just doing what others do because they see what they want and what they think they want, but they don't really know who they are. They want to go on someone else's journey, but they don't realize just because someone tells you their journey, that's not necessarily your journey. No two cars that look the same drive the same. No two identical twins that look the same are truly going to operate the same. So find out who you are and what works for you and go along your path and your journey and be okay with that. People will say something. Chances are, if no one's saying nothing, you're probably not doing something worth talking about anyway. So if people not talking or saying something not positive about you, chances are you might want to reevaluate what you're doing anyway. Because everyone likes you, something's wrong with the picture. Get out of the picture, run. So like I'll give you guys an example, true story. My mother, I hope she's not watching. But when I was 10, I thought it was a bright idea to take the car. I did. I took the car. I'm here to talk about it. But I took the car. It was my aunt's car because we went to my grandmother's house and they were taking too long. I was hungry. I wasn't waiting on them. I literally grabbed the key. I got in the car. My aunt had been showing me how to drive. Nobody knew but me and her. Bless her soul too. Pretty sure she's not watching. She sleeps. She retired. So I drove that car, got me some food, said hello to a bunch of people, came back. They had no clue I went anywhere until my aunt, she knew how she parked the car. And I left it an inch off because another car had parked in the spot. So I had to park in another spot. I was like, dang it. Because I was pretty good at putting stuff back where I got it from. I was like, well, I just eat this one. But I say I'm not hungry anymore. But I say that to say this. The reason why I took that car was to prove something to myself. I've never believed in trying to prove something to somebody else. Like I wanted to prove to myself, you taught me enough to this point, I can go and do now. How many of us are getting enough education or teaching to go out and do? I'm not saying go take the car. What I am saying is the reason I took the car was because I wanted to let myself know that I could do it without the supervision moving forward because I had been taught so well. Don't take nobody talk.
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome, Aubrey.
Yeah, that was greght. Yeah, definitely don't do something that could potentially be life-threatening.
Disclaimer.
But I think also on top of it is visualization. And I know that sounds so foo-foo, and people just think of that as like something that's not real, the law of attraction and all of that. But honestly, it really is. If you think like in your heart, and don't lie to yourself, because your subconscious brain will know that you're lying to yourself. So your brain really has to fully believe it. And the only way to fully believe it is maybe say it in a way where it's present tense, but future. Like instead of, because you are supposed to say your affirmations with a present tense, not future, like I will be a millionaire. You say, instead of saying I am a millionaire, because your brain knows that's not really true, maybe saying I have millionaire habits. Like I practice millionaire habits. Like I know what millionaires do. I study millionaires, what millionaires do. But then you got to actually study it. Like study the habits of millionaires, read as many books and podcasts, talk to people who are successful in what, maybe in a route or have things that you want to have in the future as far as assets and net worth and all that kind of stuff. And then start learning it. But like Aubrey said, then implement. And you can implement starting where you are. You don't have to have $100,000 in the bank to implement a certain strategy. You can start with whatever you can start with today, with where you are today, and at least you can now tell yourself, I am implementing millionaire habits. I have assets that millionaires have. Like I use things and strategies that millionaires use because you started using it no matter what level you're at now. And that is just like, once you start practicing that and it becomes habit and it's something that's continuous, then you are ultimately on your way to being a millionaire or being wealthy because you are actually implementing those same strategies. So it all comes from just thinking that you are now, and then you definitely will be in the future. So the whole law of attraction and envisioning things is not foo-foo. It really helps give you direction and make sure every decision that you're doing during your life, especially with your finances, are pointed toward this one North Star where you want to go. And if you don't define what that North Star is and don't define what that vision looks like, then you're just going to make haphazard decisions and you're always going to be putting out fires instead of doing things with intention and strategically.
And I just want to add on to that with the visualization part. You got to define your why, because your why is what's going to keep you grounded, because things will get tough. I mean, it's not peaches and cream. But if you have your why, it reminds you every day why you're going to do this. Even if you're not getting the results for that day, you at least you have that incentive of why you have to keep going towards whatever your race is. But dominate your lane, right? Don't worry about these other lanes. Dominate where you are.
And that goes back to knowing who you are. How do you add value? Adding value isn't always a financial thing. So when you add value to others, they don't mind adding value to you. And I think a lot of individuals don't realize that because of the circles that they're in. That goes back to changing your surroundings. When you change your surroundings and you're surrounded by individuals that are where it is you're trying to go, you want to go, then you start getting type of knowledge that you weren't getting from the individuals that weren't in those spaces. And I always say, what does it look like? What does it sound like? And what does it feel like? When you can define something in those three ways, you can truly define it, add a visualization to it, and then actually accomplish it and do it. Like, don't just be a go-giver. Go be a go-doer as well. Go do something about it. Go take action. It's a reason why there's verbs in there. Win, it's a verb. Go win, get small wins.
Nice. Nicole G, did you have any parting thoughts to this question or topic?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm just going to piggyback off of what they said, because I think I start with the vision and knowing like what that path looks like and where it is that I want to go. And then I personally kind of reverse engineer that. And I have a why. And I think that for us having a why, that's a huge, not only is it going to be like our own personal motivator, but it's also going to allow us, like Renata had said, is that when the road gets tough, you need something that's going to put you back in your lane and propel you with increasing your efforts and going forward. And it's not enough to just like have that, have that thought of like, oh, I want to be rich, or I want to be wealthy, or I want to have like lots of money and whatever. Like there has to be more purpose. And I think that when we find our purpose and we find then our true value. And I think that's what's really a driving factor for what it is that we want to accomplish.
Yeah, and I just really want to add, because I definitely had a conversation with someone when I had a presentation about, passive investing and wealth building and that kind of thing. And he was talking to me and telling me like, yeah, I have a certain amount of money and I like working and blah, blah, blah. And I just want to, I'm like asking, he wants to invest. And I'm like, asking, well, what was his why? And he was like, to make more money, to get more money. And I'm like, no, but like, there has to be something deeper than that. Like, what's the reason behind why you want money? Nothing. I just want money. And, and I kept at it a little bit, but then I let it go because I didn't know how to explain it to him more than it has to be deeper than the money. Because when times get hard or frustrated, then do you give up, or is your motivation truly just to get more money? That's why you wouldn't give up, so it's hard to explain, especially to people who make good money in their jobs and they just want to like invest it to make it grow. They don't really have that why behind it. And I don't know how you can't force somebody to decide that they want a why, but I do think that I just want to add that, because it is very important to think of something outside of the financials. Like, what are you going to do with that money once you have that money? What, like, even if you're leaving it to your kids, that's your why. right?
Okay.
Like, but it's something deeper. Like money can't buy happiness. And getting money is something that I've heard too. Getting money, like becoming wealthy is hard. Being broke is hard. So choose your hard, right? But if you have that why, then it'll be easier to push through the hard of the path to getting wealthy.
Well, and even too, when people talk about their pain points, I always say success points. The last I checked, most pain leads to the majority of success that you're going to have anyway. So when you talk about success points for most individuals, when you're dealing with a passive investor, technically the operator is going to be doing majority of the work anyway. They're just deploying the capital. So most of them aren't concerned about a why because they're quote unquote financially taking care of that aspect. They just want it to grow. And even when we talk about the why, I always take a different approach because I hear so many individuals why is about everyone but them. When it's like who's the core of you? Like when your kids are not home, when your significant other is not at home, everyone's gone and it's just you for a full week. Bless your soul if you get it. But if it's for a full week, who are you? Do you know outside of them? Who are you? What's your why? And a lot of individuals can't even answer that question. That's kind of like asking somebody to say something nice about yourself. How hard was it for most people to do that? But they could tell you something nice about the person next to them, etc. This, then the third. And I think it's something to also think about too when we talk about whys as well. Who are you outside of your kids? Who are you outside of your significant other? Who are you outside of your family? What's your why? Then what's your family why? And just something to think about to take it even further. So when you're dealing with an individual like that, if they don't have kids or they don't have a family, their why is going to be night and day anyway. So they probably could really dive in on who they are. Oh, I just want to make more money. And they're being honest about it. So just keeping those things in mind too, considering the source. And I always say, know your personnel, KYP.
Right. And we live in a society where the YOLO, you only live once. It's like nobody's thinking about legacy. Nobody's thinking about the next generation. It's all about self, not in the way that Aubrey is saying it, but it's like you want to leave something for the next generation that they have more answers than questions, right? You get it, like what Nicole P was saying, every parent wants their kid to have a better experience in life than what they did. But somewhere in the message today, that's not what's happening. This generation doesn't care about the next generation. They barely care about themselves. Never mind the next generation.
They're not having kids. They're not worried about any of that stuff.
No. So we gotta work on changing the narrative. One of the things I guess you can tell the guy is, don't you want to have something long-lasting, some long-lasting opportunities that others can partake in that you actually took part of creating? Again, it goes back to knowing who you are, what your values are, what are your core values, who are you, and that's what's going to help define your why. I agree.
I think to add, Nicole, I would ask the guy, and then what? Like once you have that money and it's grown and whatever, then what? Because I've grown to know that you kind of can't ever have enough money.
Nope.
Because you always find the next thing, or you always like want something else, or you can't do this. And it's like, when's enough? So I would just ask, and then what? Make them think.
She said she was trying to hard press him without, being too rough. But I'm sure it blew your mind that it was like, no, if I'm asking you this again, it has to be a different answer.
Yeah. Well, or you could be like me yesterday where I was on the phone trying to deal with something for my tenants, and I had asked a question and the lady had responded, and I said, okay, well, that's not the answer I was trying to get. So I asked it a different way. She responded the same way, just louder, as if I didn't hear her the first time. And I'm like, wait, I heard you the first time. You didn't need to be louder. Eventually it ended up where she accidentally hung up on me. But but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, no, you gotta ask the question a different way. You're right. Ask the question a different kind of way, But
that's honest, that a lot of people don't understand, that you got to have a deeper root, a deeper core. Your foundation has to be firm, right? You got to know and we're not taught that. That's what's happening. And even in the schools today, they're teaching them even further not to think today, to be logical thinkers.
They're teaching them memorization, and that's basically it. And it's like, What happened to problem solving and critical thinking? Where is that? You
And
know?
I hated that in school, but now I appreciate it
Yeah.
today.
Now you realize what was actually happening, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I actually use these tools, but I see it now with like the younger kids too, and they want everybody to solve their problems for them, and they want everyone to tell them the right answers, and it's like, no, like, you have to be able to think for yourself. And I think that's the best thing that we can do for them, is to give them guidance and just thinking for themselves. I don't
Well,
know, figure it out. That's
well,
your answer.
I mentioned that before too. That's also a lot of reasons why most of them play video games. When they're done with the level or they're done with the round, whatever it's referred to as, it provides them with statistical examples and explanations of what just took place. That also allows them to decide, okay, well, I got this wrong. I did that. Okay, I need to do this. Okay, they literally put together a game plan because it provided them with the immediate solution, which is a form of instant gratification. Now they can go and action take right away and actually have a solution. So it goes back to situations, experiences, and solutions. So when they play those video games, every situation, they develop a different experience for a different type of solution. So now they start putting those solutions together for different experiences throughout that video game, to where now they're actually beating the video game, or they're beating whoever's on the other end. So now those solutions are leading over, and now they're wanting that continuous instant gratification to go out into the real world, and not realizing the real world is not a video game.
Yes, man, amazing, amazing, amazing thoughts. So I want to tie in a term that Renata mentioned, which was legacy. We hear a lot about generational wealth, buying back the block. That seems to be like the new coined term these days. But I'm not seeing a lot of it. It seems to be like a fabrication of a term, just so it could stay, it could sort of be pro-black. But in your definition, what do you believe generational wealth or buying back the block really means, and how can we truly use those terminologies to make better strides towards bettering ourselves, our families, and so forth?
I think, well, I think there's two things, separate and kind of conjoined. Buying back the block, I think, is just a term or a philosophy on trying to prevent gentrification and the pushing out of people who are in a certain neighborhood because they come in and make everything better, and now the rents are too high or the purchase prices are too high, and the people who are living there in that community don't get to benefit from the upgrades and the uplift of the community and the business coming in, and all of that, because now they're priced out, and that's pushing them away. So buying back the block is just a strategy, really, to make sure that the ownership of the block stays within the same ethnic community as the people who reside in the block, and lets it so that you're increasing, the quality of that area and that neighborhood, but at the same time letting the people who were already there remain there. And then also on the other end, that helps if the owners of that block now are, minorities or African Americans or whatever. Now that as a community increases our collective net worth, that helps with the whole wealth gap, right? And then on top of that, I think generational wealth goes to protecting our assets in a way. Now we've bought some blocks, we've prevented. Now we can also, as a community, because we're still living there, benefit from the appreciation of the neighborhood. So that adds to our net worth. So now on the owner side and the resident side, the owners of the block who are redeveloping, and if people are purchasing, homes to live in that area because now they can afford it. Now on the developer side and the resident side, ownership is increased, net worths are increasing, and that helps the community as a whole, which also helps with, as long as we have a plan in place so that our heirs can inherit that net worth or those assets, and we have protections in place, we have tax strategy, we have inheritance planning, whatever else that we need to do for estate planning and all that, to make sure that's protected in a way that it won't get diminished generation after a couple of generations. And I think wealth being, kind of, I don't know, lost over a few generations also has to go with the education that goes into each generation. So if our education changes, it's very imperative for us to educate our children so that they now can educate their children. If every generation is a little more educated than the previous, then they should not be losing the assets and the net worth that was created in the previous generation. So I think it's a little separate, but it all at the end combines and blends together.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. But just to add on to that, I think we have to teach, not just leave a legacy for the next generation, but we have to teach them the value of the legacy, right? Because or they'll just squander it. They won't understand what went into this, like what fabric are they cut from, and why is it important to preserve the legacy for the community. And I think that that's part of it. We got to have that narrative, like what Nicole G was saying. We got to talk to our kids and explain that to them because they're losing that. But I like the fact that when we're actually buying the block and we're living in those areas, it's showing the younger generation what it should look like. And they're just going to hopefully perpetuate that over and over and over, rinse and repeat. But we have to show them.
Indeed. Nicola Aubrey, you guys have any take on that question?
Honestly, I'm still trying to figure out the whole buy the block kind of thing, because I think that as I've kind of been in these, kind of distressed communities and really trying to understand how best we can help without displacing the residents, I'm seeing a lot of it is determined not only by private capital, but also through like government grants. Because when you're investing in these businesses or investing in this real estate, in order to provide it back at an affordable rate, you need some sort of help. You need some sort of government assistance to the investor in order to then pass those savings back on to the residents and the tenants that are living in these places. So I'm still trying to figure that out. And I know with like my model, I go into distressed communities and I do rehabs and I try to basically uplift and empower the communities by providing nice housing. But it's and I think that there's a couple of disconnects. One, the affordability, because in order to not charge market rents, you need that assistance in some way, whether it's, extra vouchers, whether it's grants, whether it's some sort of small business funding that you get at a very low interest or cheaply, essentially. There's a way to tie all of that in, and I'm trying to figure out how people are buying the block and making it worthwhile for the tenants that are living there. That part I'm not clear on. I do understand that investors, when we're going into these communities and we are buying the block and we look like the people that live in these communities, that in itself can create a sense of cohesiveness because we're trying to help one another out. But that's still something that I'm thoroughly studying because I haven't quite understood all of that yet.
I actually have an example from someone that I follow. He's actually in Houston, I believe, one of the wards of Houston. Chris Senegal? Yeah,
that's who I'm.
So and I know this can't work in every situation, but he found a great opportunity. The way he was able to do it is he was renovating, buying the blocks and renovating, and it was 2 commercial buildings that were vacant. And he was able to renovate those and now create a small, I think one of them is a small grocery store and the other maybe like an office kind of co-working space. Don't quote me on that, but something similar where he was able to charge now rents to the commercial businesses, and that created the returns for the investors. And I don't know if he upped rents a little bit for the residents in the area, or maybe he didn't, touch those at all. But at the same time, he was able to create returns for investors based off of the increase in the commercial, rents for the building of those couple of blocks. So for the whole project as a whole, it still had good returns. and I know not every area that you can get into, you can find something that will create that, still give you the returns, even with a little bit of uptick on the commercial side. But that was one way he was able to do it. And but besides that, you're right, Nicole. I don't have any other ideas of how you do that without increasing rents on the current residents. Maybe it's not as high, or I'm not sure. But then you also have investors on the other side who want a return. So
Exactly.
yeah, there has to be some way that capital comes in that can help with facilitate that.
Right. And that's why I've been focusing more on that on the residential side and not necessarily like raising capital for multifamily investments that fit that dynamic, because it's not the same at all. But so I know he's in Fifth Ward. I know exactly, like, I know who you're talking about. And there's people that are in Houston that run a close circle of us Black investors that are doing things in these specific wards. I don't know. I think one of the very interesting things, and this is why I've spent more time studying it, is that the residents aren't happy with a lot of us investors coming in, because now they know that there's this brand new home that's now across the street from them that is worth triple what their home is worth. And now guess who's paying more taxes, and they could potentially have not even been able to afford the tax bill to begin with. There are people that because I specifically go out and I talk to the residents to try to figure out, how can I help you? Like, what is it that you guys need? Where is the disconnect? Because for us, we come in and we just see a house that's falling down or that's vacant or whatever. And we're like, oh, well, let's do a good thing and fix it. But there are other implications that then fall into place with some of these residents that are there, and they don't take kindly to all of that. Yes, they might want to see the community kind of cleaned up and whatnot, but it's also hitting their pockets. Mm-hmm. So now that's why I've like done more research and seen, okay, well, new development contributes to less displacement of the individuals that are in these communities. So that's why I bought, that land. And I'm like, okay, well, I can do that because at least that's more options for the people that are living in these communities to be able to go and find housing, versus me going in and just saying, okay, well, let me just buy the whole block. I'm gonna just go tear everything up, rebuild it, and charge higher rents and try to go make my money somewhere else. All along the while, there's all these people that have all of these houses that are going up in value, and they don't know what to do with it because they're like, well, we didn't intend to move anyway. So now what? And they don't have the financial resources and the literacy skills to understand, oh, I can capitalize on this. I could maybe cash out refi. And yeah, with interest rates being what they are now, my payment might go up just a little bit, but I'm also getting all this capital. Let me go find a way where I can increase passive income for myself. They don't have any of that. They're just sitting there stuck. Like, I can't fix my house because I don't have money, and I can't pay my taxes because I don't have money. So now what? And then we just keep going in. So it's deeper, and I'm still trying to figure that out.
I will say this too. Something that oftentimes is not talked about is local government. How many of us go to vote for local government? And I'm telling you, just from being over government facilities, I hardly see maybe 2, 3, 5. Your local government determines a lot of that stuff. A lot of things that are taking place locally in your communities, and the individuals that are impacting it, they're literally all in the same wheelhouse. And it's the same individuals that are going to vote for the same individuals because they all have an understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So if more individuals actually went to those meetings that take place on a regular basis, you don't have to live in a gated community to know what's going on there. Like, go to your local government and actually find out what's taking place, what incentives are in place. Like, they have ongoing Habitat for Humanity, etc. They have classes, etc. you can go to. If you meet X amount of points or attend X amount of classes, they actually give you vouchers for a 10K down. Most people don't even know that because they have no clue what's going on in their own local government. Oh, they don't care about us. They can't care because you don't care. Why would someone care more than you? That makes no sense. And I'm pretty sure that just made a lot of sense to individuals that probably thought that way. So if you cared a little more to go find the information as opposed to waiting for it to be brought to you, you'll
Right.
realize how it's just as important, if not more important. Don't just vote for the presidential election. Go vote for local government.
Mhm.
Go and empower and see what's taking place. What are they trying to add in? Are they trying to add a new highway? Why are they trying to add a new highway? Are they trying to give funds to this local developer to do what? What will that do? Yeah, it might bring more noise around your house. However, it might offset your taxes. So which one do you prefer? The noise with less taxes, a little more money in the bank? Or will you prefer no noise and then us go up on your taxes? Because you have tips, in-kind gifts, and Velcro taxes. So once you start understanding the government aspect of it and how that plays a huge role in it, you'd start going to vote for local government and seeing how you can impact and inspire yourself, your family, your community, and the community surrounding you. I take a different approach. Within my sports academy, for example, I go in certain areas that are high net worth areas. And in those areas, those individuals are perfectly fine with fronting the bill for a lot of things as long as their kids and their families are taken care of. So they generate a lot of revenue. And in return, they ask, what value do you need or what are you trying to do? I take those funds and I go back and invest community wise. So I don't purchase property in the area that needs a ton of uplift, etc. I bring value to them in a different way because ultimately there are some underlying issues, or should I say situations that have taken place that those experiences have not been positive. So you have to allow those individuals to come outside of their norm of an area to see something a little different. And for me, it's their kids. So once they come and their kids are a part of something and they see that, now it's like, this is what I want them to see. Once I actually take those funds and deploy it, I deploy it in those other resources by going to get the right general contractor that's associated as a vendor within that local government. So knowing the municipality and how they operate. A city operates different from a town, that operates different from a village, that operates different from a county. Counties from one end to the other end. They have a lot more money. So once I know all the necessary vendors, I can now talk to those general contractors that might be getting those in-kind gift tips that are buying the land that's in those meetings with those local government. So I sit down with the mayor, I sit down with the county administrator, and I actually get a pulse on what's taking place in their community. And I know the youth aspect of it is one thing that touches most of their hearts. So now a person that actually is knowledgeable about the local government markets, just because I work in it oftentimes, and I'm actually in your community, I'm adding value to your community, you're naturally going to be more inclined to listen because I'm getting the root of what the situation is, which starts with the kids. Now it's impacting the parents of those kids, which impacting the grandparents of those kids, to where now more revenue will come in because that general contractor will get a little more pulse of what's taking place as well, and they end up being a sponsor for those academies. So I take a little different approach than just saying I'm going to go buy or invest in that area, because you and I both know, everyone here knows, it's not going to change overnight. And it takes a village, not just for the kids, it takes a village even for the adults in changing their mindsets, because they're usually made up. They're already made up. They're not changing. So you have to show them something different, and it's usually through their kids for me.
Well, I guess in my experience with touring houses and stuff and seeing people paying market rents for houses that they should not be paying market rent on,
Yep.
that was where I was like, okay, it makes sense for me to come in and make these changes and invest in these homes and try to like make them where they're clean and they're affordable, like not necessarily like affordable. I mean, I can charge market rent, but now I'm charging market rent on a house that has heat where the other one didn't. I'm charging market rent on a house that has 4 walls and it's safe and it's got all of these other features and appliances that work. It's got a clean tub. It's got plumbing that's not backing up. Doesn't have holes in the ground. Where that's what these families are subjected to in these distressed communities, and they're still paying market rent. So it's like, and I love, Aubrey, what you said is that there's all these different ways that we can come together and make change, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. But I think that, of course, it is not going to be something that just happens overnight. But I think collectively, when more of us are targeting these specific areas and trying to do good things, that eventually it will catch on, and the power of community together is what's going to create the largest change.
Yep.
So we're hitting it from different angles here. So I love it.
Yep. And if you get 1 million people to give you $1, it's $1 million. And that's how small it is. One page at a time. It's one step at a time. And if we thought, if more individuals thought that way, when you come together, a million people just come together, give $2. That's a
Right.
whole nother
It just
change.
grows. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Great insight. So, as we approach the top of the hour, ladies, what resources would you say people can use to learn more about financial literacy, money, real estate, and any other, uh, I would say, wealth building vehicle to to get ahead, to start bridging this gap, to start, building that generational wealth and so forth?
I know for me, a resource that I came across and over the last year and it's been super helpful is my Chamber of Commerce. They definitely have a pulse on the ground. They're offering a lot of literacy. They care about the community. They offer so much support for small business or even just somebody that's interested of what's going on in the neighborhood. Regardless of your age, they have something for the kids. They have something for the adults. You got to find a place that can be your lighthouse or your North Star to look towards. And I find that the Chamber has been really good for that.
Which goes back to local government. And then the colleges, just so you know, the chambers work very closely with the colleges because they get a lot of grant money.
Right.
And it has to be spread out as well. So most colleges that are in your community, most people don't know this, but they have different things that are offered at the college that are free to the local residents. You just have to go ask. I think most colleges should do, and the chamber should do more or a better job of letting individuals know, because they have your local government, just so you guys are aware, has the access. I don't care where you're at. They have the access to put in your light bill what's taking place for the local chamber of commerce, what's taking place in your community. Like they can send all that stuff direct mail to you. They're choosing not to because it hasn't been a need, it hasn't been a desire, it hasn't been a want, because more individual hasn't gone to these different meetings to ask for these type of things that are very simple. Like let them know, hey, could you put it in our light bill? Hey, could you put it in our, like certain things that they send out anyway, put it in there because you gonna look at the light bill anyway. And so if that's in front of it, that's a value add. And it's something that is inexpensive because it doesn't have a fee with it. They just send it out, along with, the SBA.
Yeah.
Like those are on the local college campuses as well. You can go there and they can assist you, whether it's business related, whether it's financial literacy related. They have so many different opportunities that are available for you, regardless of the age, that they can assist you with. You just have to go and ask for it. But if you don't ask, they're not trying to bring it to you because most of them are short-staffed anyway.
Interesting. Well, I would add, this might be a little unconventional, but I would add that little purple book that we probably all read, The Rich Dad Poor Dad.
You took mine.
Oh, well, okay. The two Nicoles are coming together. We're recommending a little purple book because that was like mind blowing. And I wish I would have read that like 10 years ago when I was working just to work. I wish that I had known about how to view your assets and liabilities that way. And it gives you a whole different perspective. And I think that when kids can get access to that early on, or teenagers, whatever. I mean, my 6-year-old's not gonna be reading a book like that, but younger kids, when they can get access to that and understand, that is a completely different shift in mindset. And I know a lot of adults that are like, oh, well, I didn't really think that was that great of a book and whatever. And it's like, well, that's why you're going to be working till you're 65.
And how many times have you read that book?
Right.
You're going to get something else out of it, depending on, how you're matriculating through it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a mindset thing. It completely, it's not just words. It changes your whole perspective. And I think that is a great resource for people to tap into.
Definitely. I was going to say that's just like a paradigm shift, or, even though he's real estate related, I think that book goes beyond real estate. It's just like business principles and money principles. And a lot of people have read that, but a lot of people haven't. So I can't assume, because I know everybody who's read it, that everybody listening right now will have read that. I also, this is more specifically real estate related, just because, I know a few of us are in real estate, and that is a great vehicle to build wealth. Even passively, actively, you got to have a lot more education in the space. But Bigger Pockets is a great resource for a lot of free information. So at some point, you do have to level up and invest in yourself, and join a paid mentorship or paid coaching program, or join these communities where it may be paid, but you can get a lot of information for free to start off, and see if that's something you want to be involved with actively. And if not, if it doesn't fit in your lifestyle, what you need to do, look into passive activities, and you can find out about that on Bigger Pockets as well too. And then a lot, if you just searching on social media and finding the people who are posting about certain topics and start following them and schedule calls with them, like use social media to your advantage, because there are a lot of people out there who like having these conversations and want to educate and share resources and things of that nature. So I think don't be scared to reach out, because we all started from somewhere.
We all started from this. I mean, I know I did.
I know I did.
Like this much, like, you roll with it, right?
Yeah.
We're all
You gotta
black
be willing
every
to,
morning.
I'm sorry, Ari, go ahead. I was gonna say you got to be willing to fail forward, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Powerful. So, ladies, any parting tips or insight that you guys want to leave with the audience and our listeners in regards to this phenomenal topic?
I like what Renata said. Fail forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just add to that: you can't expect new results with old behavior. You got to get out your way.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off what Aubrey was talking about earlier, is just take action. Just start doing something. Like, don't sit on this information and say, I'll get to it tomorrow. Like, one little, just because you can't leap from here to, 500 million net worth, in a week or a day, doesn't mean that you can't just start small and start where you're at, and but start. Don't stop looking at information. Like, you need to look at information, but don't let that give you like a freeze. Like, don't make that be
paralyze
like
you.
Paralyze you to moving forward and actually implement one thing at a time, and then build it up from there.
Yeah. And then keep in mind too, something that's oftentimes not talked about is that some of the wealthiest individuals have the most debt because they leverage debt. If you like a lot of people, I want to be a billionaire. Well, you better learn to like debt. So, like, it's important to at least say that out loud too, because a lot of individuals love to look at, oh man, I'm so much in debt. I'm so far in debt. You're going to be in debt either way. The question is how. Like, once you go and buy that property, there's going to show some debt. It's good debt. The question is, how do you view the debt if you're looking at it? And I think a lot of individuals get stuck in, oh, I'm in debt. Okay, well, when you weren't in debt, you still were in the same situation. Your mindset was just a little different. So it's a mindset shift, heart set shift. And debt is not a bad word. It's not a dirty word. Profit is not a dirty word. All parties just have to agree on the number. And you got to make sure you're doing right by others.
Yeah. And you know what? Just to piggyback off that one quick thing, I know we were talking about. I didn't know the topic of my clubhouse room today. I had just decided it's going to be using debt as a vehicle to build wealth. So that's the topic. And then Aubrey just said that.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really good.
Let everybody know to come now while you're talking about it.
Oh, okay. I'll put a link on
shameless plug.
Social media. I'm hosting a clubhouse room at 4 p.m. Eastern today, so in 2 hours, talking about the racial wealth gap, and you now know the topic using debt. Okay.
Love
Leveraging
it.
debt. Yep.
Yeah, because it goes back to what Nicole G was saying. We're not taught that there's a difference in good debt and bad debt. We just view it as just one big lump of debt that's bad.
Yeah. There's a huge difference in that. But again, mindset, right?
It all starts with the 6 inches between our ears.
The real estate, you better own it.
Yep, there you go. So, ladies, I want to thank you all for being such great panelists. You guys truly rock. And this is your month too, so I wanted to celebrate you guys. Happy Women's Month with however it goes, but you guys are awesome minds, and to our audience, make sure you take this information. I think everyone alluded to this. Take this information, don't just sit on it. act upon it. It's, action. It's not knowledge is power solely, but it's applied knowledge that is power. So you want to take this, find some way, connect with these ladies, connect with people in your corner who are doing what these ladies are doing, or other people, successful people are doing. Take the information, learn it, and then go out and take action. And that way we can start bridging that wealth gap. And I want to leave you guys with this quote that I saw from Sam's Club. Surprisingly, right? It's by Helen Walton. It says, "It's not what you gather, but what you scatter that tells you what kind of life you have lived." So it's not about how much money you get, how much resources you get, but how much knowledge, what you put out there for other people to actually collect and start building from it. That's what really matters. So with that said, I want to thank you all for jumping on to the Wealth Tank Part 2, and keep a lookout for future episode. We will be having a ton of discussions on a variety of things, not just financial freedom, but we will talk about real estate and everything in between. And we look forward to having you again. And don't forget to reach out to each of these ladies. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll plug you into their contact information. But thank you again, ladies. Thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate you guys.
And thank you to the audience too for taking time out of your busy schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, this has been great. We need more platforms like this.
Yeah.
Thank you. And with that said, we will be out.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thanks, guys.
Always a great